let's go ahead and get into our news. So first off, we're going to be talking about Daredevil Season 2. So spoiler warning for that if you guys haven't seen the first episode of Born Again. But we just heard from the show showrunner, that Karen and Foggy will be returning for Season 2. So when you're watching that first episode, there are definitely some reshoots. And that's because Kevin Feige, Bob Iger came in and said, like, no, guys. We need to clean up how we do Disney shows or Marvel shows. They're not working well. And so Agatha Allen was the first one to have a showrunner, a show Bible, things like that. And one of the things they changed was like Karen and Foggy weren't in the episode. And he's like, that's crazy. I mean, we need to have Karen. They are Daredevil. They're his corner. They're his soul and morality. So they brought him in and you could feel it. But if you guys know, I'm kind of talking a little bit, so the spoilers, people will move away. Foggy dies in the first episode in the first 15 minutes. So the question is, how do you bring him back? We see this all the time in comic books. People being brought back from the dead. Do you think it'll be a psychological thing, or do you think that we're gonna get some sort of like Lazarus pit? What do you guys think?
Well, quick question then: how does he die? Because that changes a lot how we can bring him back.
So
he just shot in the face.
Jonathan and Squeaks haven't seen it yet. So
shot in the face.
He is shot in the chest by Bullseye.
So, I mean, that in itself, he could be in the hospital and recover from, right?
In the show, because it happens in the first 15 minutes, we then jump 1 year ahead, and he has been dead for a year. So Daredevil and Karen both think he's dead. Everybody thinks he's dead, and both of them move on with their lives because of it.
So yeah,
go ahead.
Like we saw the hand and the ninjas and stuff like how they have that resurrection ability. They could write it that way, but then his character is always going to be one who was resurrected from the dead, and that would be, a supernatural twist to his character who is very, walking the straight and narrow and just a normal guy in this superhero world. So I don't think they would do something like that. I think it would be more likely that he was taken by somebody else, kept alive, one of these secret organizations, Kingpin or somebody, and kept alive and healed, and to be either used as leverage or blackmail against Daredevil later on, or maybe to get information out of him or something like that. But I hope in the end his character doesn't actually change dramatically. Maybe grows, finding new purpose or something like that, but not to be, he's an undead lawyer.
Yeah.
It changes, who
Foggy
he is to
the zombie lawyer.
Think of that having a fight
against
like She-Hulk in a court.
Yeah. Your Honor, brains.
Yeah.
Man, that's actually a super good idea, John. But I was thinking more like, I don't really care about this character, so I feel like maybe it'd just be like flashback points, or like something in his mind that's telling him, trying to help him steer in the right way, because then we'll get some like relationship bonding between them, even like in the afterlife, and kind of help Daredevil make certain decisions. But other than that, like to bring him back or keep him alive and do whatever, I just think I don't think he's like, he might be strong in this series, but he's not really like strong in the Marvel universe, right? To me, there are times where like She-Hulk, he pops up in comics with the She-Hulk. But even at that, he's kind of just like that character to joke around about. If I remember right. I think like She-Hulk sleeping with like another dude, and they're in the same apartment together, so he just hears it all night. But I don't know. Do we care? Like Frank, I know you're like watching this, keep it up on it.
Yeah,
do you care if you were to come back?
The key with Foggy and with Karen is that they keep Matt Murdock still Matt without falling too deep into like I am Daredevil, like a Batman problem, right? Where Bruce Wayne is all but forgotten for Batman. The thing that keeps Matt still grounded is his friends. And with Karen out of the picture, because she also moves to San Francisco after this event, and as she's gone, so he's by himself, and he does seem to be losing himself a lot. Not necessarily
Punisher if he doesn't have that balance in his life, right?
But that's the problem with Daredevil is you don't want him to go full Punisher. You have a Punisher for that. Exactly. You want him to still be like lawyer first, Daredevil second.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the problem with me is I do want there to be something that keeps him grounded. And what I would like for them to try to do, if they're going to be so adamant about bringing Foggy back, is to do the Joker Batman thing that we see from the Arkham games. Joker dies in one of the Batman games, and
so see like in his head,
he's still there in the future games, but he's basically like the devil on Batman's shoulder the whole time, kind of whispering in his ear, suggesting things, his morality check, and that would be very cool to me to see Foggy kind of like sitting next to him while he's sitting there, fighting somebody or he's about to punch somebody might be too hard, and Foggy's like, "That's not what you would do, Matt." I think that would be kind of a fun little duality there of two different characters.
Do we want to see him like Joker? Oh, sorry. Do we want to see him like Joker, where he's all messed up looking, like Joker was? I would like to see him always show up with like a chest in it, or like a bullet in his chest.
Yeah, a little bit of blood on his shirt. That'd be cool.
Yeah, little too dark,
I think that would teach like a interesting lesson or something like that to everybody. Also, to the audience, that somebody who passes isn't truly gone if you remember them, kind of thing. Like that's
a good idea. Yeah,
people can live on forever as long as we learn from the things they taught us and stuff like that. So I think that's a little too deep for the type of show we're watching.
Yeah, that is a little too deep for this show. Okay, John.
I doubt they would go that route, but that'd be kind of cool.
It's not too deep for Daredevil though, because his whole thing is that was raised in the church. His mom's a nun.
Yeah,
it's not too deep for the character, but maybe something for Disney.
I'm trying to get caught up because I watched all of season 1 and then I watched a little bit of season 2 back when they first aired and then stopped. So I finished season 2. I'm in the beginning of season 3. So right now he's like struggling with his faith and trying to regain his strength and all that stuff. So it's a really good arc that he's in the middle of.
Season 3 is my favorite one. Oh, so good. Yeah, that's when you get Bullseye too. Is in season 3. So he's gonna be a problem. Let's go ahead and move forward. We have a Monopoly movie, and at first I'm like, that sounds stupid. But it's being written by the guys who did that Dungeons & Dragons movie.
That was my butt, too.
Yeah. What do you think, Squeaks, about this?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I'm kind of looking forward to potentially seeing it for the fact that it was done by the Dungeons & Dragons makers. And then I'm kind of like picturing it, too, like it'd be like this big... I try to think of like this big city, right? Of just like glamour, big buildings and stuff. Like what kind of the things that you want to strive for, like buying property on Park Place or something like at the end, right?
Boardwalk,
But then it'd be nice to see those cities where like, this is the ghetto. We don't really care about these ones, but people still own the real estate.
The railroad.
It'd be it'd be funny to see like this maybe like this group of guys that consistently like try to like buy up property, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be funny like to see like those kinds of wars or whatever. And I could see a lot of humor with this thing, but I think at the end, obviously, like the lesson learned, I would feel like if I was like pitching this movie too, is like, okay, what happens when someone does buy it all? And then what? Like, what do you have? You probably like ruin relationships or whatever when you do own everything. But something, a twist that I would really like to see though, is something that the Lego movie did. That the whole time you're watching this movie, but at the end of it, you realize that there's people that are playing with these Legos. So I would like to see during the movie, if there was like this, you could say godlike type character that's changing things around or events that are happening that they don't know why, and it's because there's someone orchestrating the whole board game.
If you do that, then at some point, whoever's the banker has to be stealing from the bank. That'd be great. Or like somebody's cheating in the game and we find out later on that's like, oh, that's because they were hiding that they had this card or something like that.
That's our brother Miguel.
Yeah. So to me, I was thinking like this has to have Jack Black in it or somebody like him. It's got to be
Of course it will.
Gotta be comedy.
No.
Right away, I'm thinking of the Jumanji, like how good those were.
Oh, that was perfect. Yeah.
But I'm thinking in the
Bold
world
ones.
of the Cat in the Hat movie with Mike Myers. Remember how like whimsical that world
I love
design
that movie.
was?
I don't care what
Forgotten Gem, dude. So good.
So good. And I
Some
saw
of
a
the
review
best
online saying
one-liners.
it wasn't good. And I'm like, what? No, it was amazing. Like him when he's doing the whole chef scene and stuff. Anyways.
I think
it was too much adult humor. I think that's why I got a lot of bad rap, but I thought it was hilarious. I love that movie.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I'd like to see Jack Black as some rich guy in the city or whatever, and he's going around trying to buy up all the buildings in town. And then there's two young kids who realize like, well, no, if you guys buy everything, and he's jacking up rent and stuff like that, so people can't afford anything. And so two young kids realize like, well, if he buys up everything, he's going to own it all, and we won't have anywhere to live, and blah blah blah. So two young kids have to like work together to try to overthrow this guy that's trying to make a monopoly in their small town or city.
See, that's a good idea to have like someone that's trying to buy it all, and then the guy gets the whatever. But I kind of want to see something a little different. Like I want to see like some trade war type stuff to like Wolf on Wall Street, Leonardo, and they're fighting with other companies.
Yeah, especially with what you're mentioning beforehand. Like we see like this big battle. Like if it's a serious thing, with these writers, I think it'll be a joke. But with it being a serious thing, like if it is this big battle amongst like four different kings of New York or whatever, and then at the end you zoom out and you see it's like four kids and one of them's a punk, and so you're like, oh yeah, all these asshole attitudes is actually just these four kids sitting around a table. That'd be kind of a fun little thing. Like it's all childish. the funny thing is the first original creator of Monopoly made the game to teach people that Monopoly is bad and capitalism is bad, but then was kind of upset by it. Her game was bought and sold, blah, 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 by, I think it was Mattel or something like that. And it was celebrating capitalism and monopolies and stuff like that. She's always hated that. And so it's funny that when we're talking about this movie, we're all coming to the same consensus that at the end there's a lesson to be learned. The lesson that she wanted in the first place is that it's not great to own everything. But I mean, with John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein, the two writers on this, I do feel like it will be a comedy, and maybe there is a thing where we kind of do like a satire on capitalism, but also like just these guys constantly making all their money and losing it all because like you keep going around to the poor area every time you go past go. There's going to be a part where they go to jail and somebody's going to have a card to get out, stuff like that. Maybe they can make a little bit of jokes about that, community chest or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's a little tough, right? Because you want to have this lesson, but then you also made this game where like that's the point you want to win, right? So you're making me do it. But it'd be funny to kind of see like what you said, like go past these poor areas, whatever. But imagine like these like big wigs, right, are just trying to get these like really nice properties, but somehow they keep landing, right, whatever they do to make it on these poor properties. So all these like people with the small properties are getting rich because they keep landing on them. I think that'd be funny. And then you just be like, fuck Boulevard or whatever it's called. Yeah.
One dude's always in the railroads. What the hell?
Exactly. Yeah. You own 4 railroads. Shut the fuck up. And the next thing you know, you're always landing on them. So, yeah. Shit, that'd be funny. It's gonna be funny. A movie.
It's all on the writers because again, when I heard Monopoly movie, I'm like, why are we doing this? It reminds me of that Battlefield. Well, you know what? Honestly, I'm saying this, but that Battlefield movie. What was it called? Battlefield. Battleship movie. Yeah. When that thing was announced, I thought it was stupid. It's not the worst movie. It's actually kind of good. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just the premise when you think of like you're grasping at straws to take a board game that has no depth to it, and you're making all of the story, all of the depth out of almost nothing. You're taking a picture and writing a whole book about it, and it's like, that's kind of a lot just to get the value that it provides from being recognizable. But if you can make a good movie out of it, then do it. It's still a recognizable name.
Yeah, it's almost like the Barbie movie, right? Yeah, the Barbies doesn't have like they have like different jobs and stuff like that, but they're not like a super like story based, established concept already like D&D was, right? Yeah. I thought that movie's great. I love the Barbie movie. Cracks me up.
One thing that's kind of disheartening is the fact that these guys aren't making more Dungeons and Dragons movies. Like that thing to me was great.
Yeah, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. Yeah.
All right, moving forward, Michael Hurst, he's the creator of the Viking series and its Viking spinoff. He's making a new series, this time for Amazon, called Blood Axe. So just a little story behind Blood Axe. Eric Blood Axe and his wife, Gunhild, will also be in the show. He was ruthless both in politics and in combat. His father was the king of Norway. Eventually what happens is Blood Axe takes over Norway and then takes over Northumbria. So he's like this conquering, he's one of the first big kings. Did you guys have a chance to watch the Viking series? And what are we needing? Why do we need more of these, basically?
Oh, my God. Yes, I watched it all. And I think I just crazy binge watched it during like one of my firstborn or something like that and on leave or whatever. But it's got this like it's a hint of Game of Thrones without the intense like magical side. Like there are some of like I don't know what you call it. There's some spiritual type stuff that goes on, but it's really grounded also. And it just, I don't know. It's just the characters were perfect to me. I had a blast with it. It was definitely like after the first season, you could tell like the budget went up, right? The first season was horrible, like fighting, like I'm just seeing a bunch of people LARPing and shit. But then next thing you know, now we're doing like crazy, like ripping bodies apart and stuff like that, and like really gory. It gets gorier.
One of the seasons where they go attack France, you're like, this is movie budget. This is crazy expensive.
But I don't know. It was just good storylines with issues that were happening of like who's helming what and who's taking charge when others are gone, and I don't know. It was just that again. It's Game of Thrones to me without the crazy not as magic, I guess.
And the politics aren't as
Sci-fi.
intense either, too. Like, you're right with the Game of Thrones thing, but it was also kind of like just scaled back a little bit, so it's a little bit more enjoyable to watch, and less like you have to focus on absolutely every little detail, because it was just like, oh yeah, I know that guy with the axe. He's gonna go kill that guy with the axe, and like it was nice like that, in that way.
Yeah.
And also the thing too is that was based off of a legend amongst the Norse about Ragnar Lothbrok, who was kind of like everybody's dad. This character, like literally, there's a statue of him in Norway. So like this is actually a real person. And when we get the spinoff or like later in the seasons for Vikings, that character, his son, is a real character. So it's interesting to see them go into like the book basically. Like these are real characters. So
this is more their history than fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
What is it that you guys want to see out of this that we might not have seen before? Like for me, I would like to see other cultures and their interactions. Like we got a little bit with like France and whatnot, but with Northumbria and things like that. Like I would like to see other nations at this time kind of come into conflict with the Vikings and how they handled them, because they were different than their neighbors in a lot of ways. And also let's show the Vikings more extensively. Like they were farmers first, raiders second, but every time we show them on screen, they're raiding. And so it would be kind of, if you guys played Valhalla, it's a great interpretation of them. Like most of what they're doing is just trying to establish colonies and survive in a land that has actual fruitful, whatever, like actual land. But instead you're like, axe all the time in these movies. It'd be cool to see some more of that.
So is this post first Viking? So at the end of the Viking series, I remember they were kind of being drifted away and like actual history, right? Like adopting like Catholicism and all that stuff. So it's like the Vikings kind of slowly went away. I'm assuming this is beforehand. Is that correct?
Yeah, because this is a long span and a lot of different areas that are Vikings, technically.
Yeah.
And so this would be, I think this is beforehand. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe that continued conflict of like the people going away, essentially. Maybe they feel like their culture is being ridden of,
okay.
Because of maybe conflicts with other cultures and stuff like that, like we see in the last of the seasons. Maybe something like that, more of that conflict. I don't know. Yeah.
I like that idea because, like in The Last Kingdom, which is a very good series, and they're actually making a movie for it right now. If you guys haven't watched that, I absolutely recommend it. Maybe even more than Vikings. And in that one specifically, they're taking over England, and there are certain tribes of the Vikings that have joined the English side and are now kind of like English boys. They're like, oh, we're still Dane, and they're like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
You're going to church now. You're not worshiping the trees like we do or whatever.
It'd be neat to actually see across like deals being made, like Vikings making deals with like Englishmen or whatnot, and then kind of betraying their own tribe. I wouldn't mind seeing that.
Yeah,
I like from like Game of Thrones. I like the elevated fantasy side of it, dragons and magic and whatnot. And I know this isn't going to have that to it because it's just a totally different vibe. But I think more depth to the story, like you're saying, like doesn't have much of the politics and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be so strategic and super complicated, but like you're saying, like kind of elaborate on the culture more and like what does it look like when they go back home and they're not in war? What do their bakers, look like? People they have to eat. There's a butcher somewhere. Like they're not all just the warriors. Like Star Trek, we see the Klingons. It's like, well, somebody makes the Klingon armor. Somebody builds their ships. Where's the engineers? Where's the doctor? We only see warriors. So it'd be cool to see kind of the depth in their culture that you don't get from the other shows.
Yeah, true.
That is kind of a blind spot in Star Trek itself too, is the fact that we don't see a lot of people who are not in Federation. And I remember very clearly the one episode of Voyager I could think of where Harry Kim has a what if episode of what if he didn't go on Voyager. And it's like, there's this coffee shop he goes to. You're like, there's coffee shops in Starfleet? There's like all kinds of things. It's like, oh, I didn't even think about how people are like, oh, that guy's an artist. You're not on a ship somewhere fighting Klingons or whatever, or alongside Klingons at that point. So yeah, that would be kind of cool to kind of expand that world, both in Star Trek, now I'm thinking about it, and here too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the last thing too is like I think Vikings was originally made for the History Channel. The second one was made for Netflix.
Yep.
This is the first time that Amazon's taking it, and Amazon has been leaning hard into fantasy with Rings of Power and Wheel of Time. So they kind of are getting pretty good at making those fight scenes and making them look good.
Yeah.